Ever wondered how secure your apps really are? In the digital age, we interact with apps on a daily basis. From banking to shopping, socializing, and even health tracking, apps have become integral to our lives. But how often do we stop and think about the security of these apps? App security is the shield that protects our personal information from cyber threats. It's the invisible fortress that keeps our data safe from prying eyes. It's crucial for us to be aware of the level of security that our apps provide. Ignorance isn't bliss in this case. It could lead to damaging consequences such as data breaches and identity theft. Insecure apps are like ticking time bombs, waiting to explode and wreak havoc on our digital lives. So how can we ensure the safety of our apps? To understand app security, we need to break down two key concepts: authentication and authorization. So what exactly is authentication, you may wonder? Well, in the simplest terms, authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user, device, or system. It's like a digital handshake between you and the application you're trying to access. Imagine you're logging into your email account, you punch in your username and password, and voila, you're in. But what's happening behind the scenes? That's where authentication comes into play. The email service is checking whether the credentials you've entered match their records. If they do, you're authenticated and granted access. If they don't, you're denied entry. In the realm of applications, this process is absolutely crucial. Without authentication, anyone could gain access to your personal data, modify it, or even use your identity for malicious activities. It's the first line of defense against unauthorized access, a digital gatekeeper, if you will. But it's not just about preventing unauthorized access. Authentication also ensures that you're getting the service you're entitled to. For instance, if you're a premium subscriber of a music streaming app, you should have access to all the exclusive features. The app authenticates you as a premium user and grants you the appropriate access. In our daily digital lives, we encounter authentication more often than we realize. Whether it's logging into our social media accounts, making an online purchase, or even unlocking our smartphones, authentication is constantly at work, keeping our digital identities secure. But remember, authentication isn't foolproof. Hackers are always trying to find ways around it, which is why it needs to be robust and constantly updated. It's not a one-time setup, but rather an ongoing process that needs to be reviewed and strengthened regularly. So, there you have it. Authentication is the process that verifies the identity of a user, device, or system. It's a crucial part of app security, helping to protect your data and ensure you get the service you're entitled to. Now that we've tackled authentication, let's move on to our next concept, authorization. Now, what about authorization? Sounds similar, doesn't it? Well, let's break it down. Imagine you're at a bustling nightclub. The bouncer at the door, he's like the authentication process. He checks your ID, makes sure you are who you say you are, but once you're inside, there's a VIP section. The bouncer inside that section, he's the authorization process. He checks to see if you're allowed into this exclusive area. You've been authenticated at the door, yes, but are you authorized to be in the VIP section? That's a different question altogether. In the digital world, authorization is the process that comes after authentication. Once a system knows who you are, authorization is the process of determining what you're allowed to do. It's about permissions and privileges. It's the system saying, okay, I know who you are, now what are you permitted to do here? So why is authorization as important as authentication? Well, think about it. If everyone in the nightclub could just wander into the VIP section, it wouldn't be very exclusive, would it? The same principle applies to your apps. You don't want every user to have access to all data and functionalities. Some areas need to be off limits to maintain security and privacy. That's where authorization comes in. Here's another way to look at it. Authentication is your ticket to the event. It gets you in the door. But authorization is your backstage pass. It determines what doors you can open once you're inside. Both processes are crucial in maintaining a secure app environment. They work together like two sides of the same coin. Authentication confirms your identity, and authorization defines your access. One without the other is like a nightclub with no bouncers. And we all know how that would end up, don't we? With a grasp on authentication and authorization, we can now delve into app vulnerabilities and pentesting. Apps aren't perfect, they have vulnerabilities, but how do we find them? In the digital world, apps are not invincible fortresses, but rather complex structures with potential weak spots, or what we call vulnerabilities. These are flaws or weaknesses which, if exploited, could compromise the app's security. leading to unauthorized access or data breaches. So how do we uncover these vulnerabilities? Enter the realm of penetration testing, or pen testing for short. Pen testing is the art of ethical hacking, where cybersecurity professionals mimic the tactics of malicious hackers to identify and fix these weak spots before they can be exploited. It's like a security audit, but instead of ticking boxes, we're actively trying to break into our own systems, all in the name of improving security. But how does pen testing relate to authentication and authorization, the concepts we've been discussing? Well, remember how authentication is all about verifying who you are and authorization is about determining what you can do. In pen testing, these two concepts are crucial. Pen testers often start by attempting to bypass authentication mechanisms. They might try to impersonate legitimate users or use various techniques to crack passwords. If they succeed, it's a clear sign of a vulnerability that needs to be addressed. Next, they'll look at authorization. Are there any actions that a user shouldn't be able to perform but can? Can a regular user access admin-only areas? If so, that's another vulnerability. By utilizing these techniques, pen testers can provide a comprehensive view of an app's security status, highlighting vulnerabilities that could potentially be exploited by real attackers. But remember, pen testing is not a one-and-done solution. The digital landscape is constantly evolving, and so are the methods used by hackers. Regular pen testing, alongside a robust understanding of authentication and authorization, is vital to maintaining app security. App security is a constant battle, but with knowledge on authentication, authorization, and pen testing, you're well equipped to understand the security of your apps.